Welcome back to Relatable Wisdom, the podcast where everyday people share the quotes that shaped how they see life, helping you discover wisdom that speaks to your own journey. Today's guest is Bryan Charleau, a sales professional and author who spent over 13 years learning that success isn't just about technique, it's about building something deeper from the ground up. He's someone who believes in mentorship, in guiding others through the struggles he once faced himself. Let's step into Bryan's world for a few minutes and hear the quotes that has helped him along the way. Good
How are
morning,
you
Bryan.
doing?
I'm doing great. Tell us your name and what you do.
My name is Bryan Charleau. So I kind of do a plethora of things, but I currently work a full-time sales career. I do sales coaching for new professionals entering the field of sales, and I've also written a book on sales that I also help work with.
Yeah. What's your favorite quote?
So my favorite quote that I like to use a lot, just so I don't butcher it, it's the way you do anything is the way you do everything.
Oh, what is that? Can you explain that with an example?
Yeah, the biggest way to look at it is kind of the co-balance between everything you do in life when it comes to your personal life, your career, your ambitions, your goals, and how you can't just have kind of all your eggs in one basket and expect that to grow fruitfully while not applying that same type of effort, knowledge, consistency to the other parts of your life and expect to not have issues with that. So this is a co-balance between everything that you're doing from a habitual standpoint, so that you're kind of growing everything together instead of, think of it like a garden where you have one tree or plant that's this tall and the rest of them are sitting down here. You have to grow everything together with this consistency and habits that you do. And I really think that's an important part of growth. Like I said, both personally, mentally, spiritually, and in your career.
When did you first come to the realization of this quote?
Well, the first time I heard it was actually it's not the original source, is it's typically attributed to Tom Waits, who's a singer songwriter. But where I heard it was through Phil Jackson, who was the legendary coach of the Chicago Bulls and the LA Lakers. With him saying that, and it kind of resonated. I do have an athletic background. I did play university football. Um, and that's not even when I had heard it. I actually heard it a little bit later in life, into my 30s. But it just really hit hard as you're trying to balance, as life starts to come at you. And some people have kids, some people have family members they have to take care of, some people have outside obligations on top of their career and their personal life. And it can become a whirlwind for you if you don't find that balance. And again, when you start putting more effort into one category of your life and the other ones start to kind of get put aside as you're focusing on other things, if you just can't find that balance, you really run into troubles. And I've really tried to keep this at the forefront to make sure that I maintain this consistent habits for all aspects of my life.
Well, the way you do anything is the way you do everything. How does this find application in your day-to-day life? And could you give us specific examples?
Yeah, the biggest thing is it really does come down to consistency, and making sure that you're finding time for yourself, making sure that you're finding time for family members and loved ones. And really, you have to prioritize and put efforts into this. Like, it doesn't just come naturally. You have to keep this at the forefront when you are balancing and maintaining these relationships in your life. And the biggest thing I look at it is, I actually talk about it in the book, is if I want to have a fruitful career, um, there are a lot of things that I have to maintain within that balance of my workday, making sure that I'm organized, making sure that I'm punctual when I'm going to meetings, making sure that I'm maintaining relationships with customers, making sure that I'm maintaining relationships with coworkers. And it can't be an act. This has to be a genuine thought that you want to make sure that you're prioritizing these people because you care about them. And it's just part of who you are and doing that. But at the same time, if you put all that work and effort into what you're doing in your career, but in your personal life behind the scenes, you're not making time for your friends, you're not making time for loved ones. If you have kids, making sure that they're getting to their sporting events, making sure they're getting to their school events, making sure they're getting to all these things. Like, you can't just be super organized in this aspect and then running around
Let's take a quick pause. If you're enjoying this conversation and want more thought-provoking ideas straight to your inbox, join the Relatable Wisdom email list. It's free, quick, and filled with bite-sized insights, inspiring quotes, and behind-the-scenes reflections from our guests. Just head to relatablewisdom.com/join. That is relatablewisdom.com/join, or tap the link in the show notes. And hey, subscribing to the podcast helps more than you think, and it's free. So if you haven't already, hit that follow button wherever you're listening. All right, let's get back to the conversation.
Unorganized in your personal life. So it has to have this coexistence together. And that's what this all is, because I guarantee if you're late and not punctual at your work functions, you're probably the same way, but in your personal life. And if you aren't maintaining the relationships in your personal life, you're probably having a difficult time doing it in your work life. Like it all just coexists, and it just takes effort. But when you are able to maintain that, it starts to become more and more natural. But you're going to see the fruitfulness of actually putting this time and effort into it. And you're going to see it being reciprocated a lot more as well when you do it first.
Yeah, of course, it takes practice, ton of practice. Mm-hmm. Where you do anything is the way you do everything.
Yeah. And I also found that this was big in my athletic career. Now, again, it wasn't a quote that I had at the time that I knew about, but it still exists. It's punctuality, it's organization, it's making sure that you're doing things when you don't feel like doing things. Like I said, anyone can show up to something when they're feeling good and they're energized and they want to do it, but it takes a lot more effort to go to the gym and train when you're tired and don't want to do it. It's difficult to have difficult conversations with customers. Say something, say they were supposed to have a delivery, say a product that you sold them isn't working. You can't just avoid it. They're calling you, they're emailing you, they need to talk to you. You can't just avoid those scenarios. And you have to have this mindset, like, I have to take accountability for this. I was part of this process that led to this. So I have to have that difficult conversation. And even if it means, that person's angry at me, even if it means that I have to maybe go out of my way to help this person in a different way. Well, the same thing happens in your personal life. Yeah. If you're avoiding it over here, you're avoiding it over here. But at the same time, if you're confronting it and taking accountability in your work life, in your career, it's a lot easier to take accountability and have those difficult conversations in your personal life too. It just coexists and becomes more habitual as you just accept these responsibilities for your own actions.
For me, one of the things I've noticed is that when there are these deficiencies, the areas that are lacking attention, what happens is that it's not intentional. How do I say it now? It's not like we think it out loud. It's more like it happens. And so you just notice that this is a pattern. We start to do other things to compensate for the things that we are not giving attention to.
Yeah. Because it's easier, you're naturally drawn to the easier, more fun things. Like I said, like being in sales, if I have a customer that loves my product and, I just had a big sale with them and they're happy with it, well, it's pretty simple to get up in the morning and show up at their office and have a conversation with them. And on the contrary, if, I have a customer that's upset or whatever, naturally you want to avoid it. But when you have this type of mindset, you have to remember, like, I can't just hide from these things. Like there isn't, I can't just keep avoiding their calls. I can't just flush their emails, right? It's like, I got to take responsibility for this. And as much as I give the balance to that customer that's happy and I want to go see, I have to attend to this other scenario. And then what happens is it starts to balance out. They're going to appreciate the fact that you took that accountability and responsibility. And that doesn't mean they're going to sell or buy from you again. It doesn't mean they're going to be happy with the product, but they're going to appreciate the fact that you went in and gave them that attention that they were needing, and that you, it was your responsibility. And then everything just grows together, as you've given it that attention, and that customer is still going to be happy with you over here. That's okay. But you've actually taken this, and you know what it does? It takes this weight off your back, this nagging feeling burden in the back of your mind, because it's there. You can push it away for a while, but it's always going to be there. Same with when you're trying to be on a good diet or you're trying to get in better shape and you miss the gym that day. It just sits there in the back of your mind, and the only way to quiet it is to actually accept it and tackle it head on.
Yeah. The strange thing, I think I heard of this quote from Charleau, that is the writer of The Alchemist, and that is, tell your mind that the fear of suffering is greater than suffering itself.
Yeah. That
Sometimes
long term.
these hard conversations is difficult, but I mean, the picture we paint in our head is way more dangerous and difficult than what it actually is.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what too, and it comes from this consistency. Well, those things start to pile up. Like I said, if one
Okay.
person is mad at your actions and something that you haven't taken responsibility for, that you've kind of run from, odds are the way you do anything is the way you do everything. It's going to happen again, and it's going to happen again, and it's going to happen again. Now you have this festering combination of things that you've pushed aside and not taken that accountability for, and it just grows and grows over. It could be a lifetime until you change that, until you actually go back and you quiet your mind from that bite. Again, it comes down to accountability and responsibility, which I always preach. That's the only way to get those voices out of your head, because you know what is right. You know what you need to do. You just have to now put it into action. And then once you've done that, once you've gone backwards and accepted that and taken care of that, now as you move forward, you take it head on as it's happening. So it doesn't build and grow, and you just put your mind at peace for these things. And it's just it's a much better way to live. But sometimes it takes going 2 steps backwards to go those steps forward finally.
Thank you for sharing the quotes and helping me make sense of it. What would be the takeaway you want my listeners to take away from this episode?
I think there's a couple things that maybe could be relatable if you are listening to this. A lot of it has to do with just having a quick self-reflection of your own actions, kind of on a day-to-day basis, and see if you can have that conversation with yourself to find out if maybe there is something that you have been ignoring a little bit, maybe because it does feel a little bit daunting or a little bit difficult. And kind of ask yourself if that's weighing on you a little bit, and if maybe you can prioritize a few different things in your life to kind of bring it some balance with you, because I can share from personal experience that they don't go away unless you actually do confront them, whatever it may be. Maybe it's just a conversation with somebody personally in your life. Maybe it's a conversation with somebody in your workplace, or a boss, or a customer. It could be any number of things. And just continue on with that consistency. And it really just has to do with your own self accountability and your own actions. A lot of things that control the things you can control. You can't always control the way the person's going to react, or the way something's going to move forward in the future, but try to control the things that are in your hands, and have that conversation with yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much, Bryan, for just sharing with me and reminding also that how we do anything is how we do everything. Because sometimes we need to understand what's our attitude towards things. And so with that mindset, it leaves us at a point where we're asked, because now it leaves us at a point where we then decide that, oh, am I going to do this thing, or am I not going to do this thing? But there is no in between. I'm doing it, or I'm not doing it, right? So it's not like, I will try and do it. And if I like, I put some more efforts and all these things. No. It's like, is it a yes or is it a no? So if it's a resounding yes, it's a resounding yes. If it's a resounding no, it's a resounding no. You don't try to say, oh, let me say yes, no together.
Well, you bring up a great point there, and we sometimes have to look at it the opposite end of the spectrum. Maybe there's something that you've taken on that you aren't putting that same effort that you typically do. You maybe hold yourself to a high standard on how you perform and how much effort and thought you put into an action. Maybe you've taken on something, again, both work, personally, that you really just, your heart isn't into, and it just doesn't, and it seems to be lacking what you typically put forward. And maybe that's something you have to have another difficult conversation and get rid of that in your life. And maybe just kind of cut ties with whatever it is that you've taken on that your heart isn't into. And that's going to help, again, balance out the things that you are passionate about.
Thank you so much. Where can my listeners learn more about you and what you do?
Well, I do have a book out. It's called Pitching Sales, How to Become a Sales Professional, where I kind of put this attitude into the sales profession. They can do, and they can find me on Instagram at pitching sales. They can reach out. I run it myself. So if they do DM me, they have any questions, they want any help, I'm always here to help, right? So that's why I wrote the book. That's why I kind of have this mindset, because I had to have this, everything I just talked about is all the same conversations I had to have with myself. And it
Yeah.
comes in waves. Just because you have it once doesn't mean you don't have to have it again. You're constantly auditing yourself to make sure that you are keeping these mindsets that you've promised for yourself at the forefront. So it's not easy, but as you do it with more repetition and more habitual ways of going about it, it does become, slowly over time a little bit easier. And I'm always here to help with things like that.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been an absolute delight chatting to you. I know internet did try to interrupt us, but I'm glad we were able to we were able to finish and conclude the conversation.
Absolutely. I really appreciate you having me on. It's really been a pleasure.
Yeah. I've stopped. You've been listening to Relatable Wisdom, and I've been your host, Wisdom Okonkwo. You've been listening to the podcast where every story, quote, and insight helps you see life a little differently. If you enjoyed today's episode, follow the show on your favorite podcast app and share it with someone who loved the conversation. For more inspiring voices and timeless wisdom, visit relatablewisdom.com. Until next time, keep living, learning, and collecting wisdom that matters most to you.